Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we have episode 168 today.
We are right in the middle of there's nothing there.
yeah.
We're about 50 away from boiling water, though.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, we're getting there. So, today we're going to talk about a topic that was suggested by one of the Patreons, Eric, and it's talking about filling the gaps. And what he was talking about is, what do you think there are gaps in the cards and dice market, both for content creators like ourselves or from game designers? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, what we think are some of the holes, what we think some of the holes which have been filled. We're going to talk about that as well. So, we're going to have a little discussion about them, filling the gaps here in cards and dice, and that'll probably bleed over into some PC game stuff as well. Anyway, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. So thanks for Eric for dropping that subject to our Patreon. Anyway, ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line, and digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. Facebook.com/groups/digital-to-dice. Come over to Facebook and join the discussion. And if you would like to become a Patreon to help us out for either $2 a month or $5 a month, it is patreon.com/digital-to-dice. So, anyway, we jumped right into that. So you got some snow and I got some rain. It's basically the weather report.
We got some snow. Yes, the weather report tonight brought to you by Abishon Hardware.
We just got those down in our area a few years ago.
Oh, really? And Abishon's, they've been around here up here. They're northern New England shade. I think they're based out of Maine. We got some snow on Sunday, and they got that plowed away. And then last night we got about 5-6 inches here in town. And then about 11 o'clock last night, it changed over to schmutz, sleet, freezing rain, which apparently it did all night. And so there was an email notice that the city of Burlington is doing a parking ban tonight. So get your cars off so they can scrape and all that. So, we were about 15 inches below normal snow-wise going into a couple weeks ago. I don't think we've made it up yet, but the deficit is now closer to that.
Yeah, we've had a lot less snow ourselves. In fact, last night the guy in the news says the temperature's going to creep up to about 40 overnight, and if they didn't, we'd have a foot of snow or more in the morning. So I'll take the rain, I guess.
You still have the line though, where it's 35 in one place and 29 in another, and so
yeah.
Where do you normally? Because I went to college at Linden State, and we got. I'm sure I've explained this before. We got BZ4 on the local cable system up there. And so we became familiar in the meteorology school where the rain snow line was depending on what side of 495 you are on. So where do you normally fall for that?
There's a 128 line that curls around Boston almost like a semicircle.
Right.
And so that's what the line is. And depending on the storm and the weather, sometimes inside that belt you get more and sometimes you get less. Usually by the coast you get less because it's more rain. It's a little bit warmer by the coast. But we happen to be in what's called the jackpot area. So when you see the weather come up and they talk about all the different amounts of snow, around us will be like 5 inches and we'll be closer to 7 or 8. We always get a couple of extra inches in our jackpot area. So when our area gets it, we get it the most.
You get it the most. Now we have the opposite because we have the lake. And the lake doesn't usually freeze over fully until about February. And in fact, it actually needs to get cold if it's going to freeze over at all this year because it's the largest lake that's not a Great Lake in North America. So having that thermal blanket about 1,000 feet from where I am keeps Burlington a couple degrees warmer. So the further away you get from the lake, and of course, eventually you're going to run into the ski areas and stuff, which get a ton of snow. So we might get 2, the next town over might get 4. I'll call my mom, who's about 40 minutes away, and she's talking about 6 or 7. And I mean, that's just how it works. So we don't get jackpot here. If we get a jackpot, it's mentioned because it happens so rarely here in the Florida Valley.
Yeah, we're in a little couple-mile radius area that we get it pretty good. But we got the rain last night, so we'll take the rain and the slop rather than the snow and the ice, I guess.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah.
All righty. So should we get into what we're playing?
Yeah.
I guess I'll kick off this week. Kickoff.
Good,
You get where I'm going with this?
I'm trying to think of what I played, so yeah, kick off.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick off. Ha ha ha.
You're going to kick off.
So I finally
put your top running back in as a center on the last play of the game.
Did you see that?
That was nuts.
You know what I think? What that was supposed to be? I think he was supposed to snap it to Zeke Elliott. We're talking about. He was supposed to snap it to the quarterback. He was going to let that guy go around him. They were going to throw it to the receiver, and then Zeke Elliott was going to go out and get the pitch. That's kind of how I think that was supposed to be.
But he was listed as ineligible on the play.
Oh, dude, you would be right about that. Although sometimes, well, yeah, because everybody else was off to the right. It was a weird design play.
I understand. I think you had the general idea. They were trying to let the Niners think they were going the right, and they had a couple people on the left that were there. But because I listened to that on the satellite radio, and I forgot who the crew was. It was pretty good, but wasn't Kevin Harlan good, but a pretty good crew. And so it was they noticed that Elliott was lining up as an ineligible player, and so I'm not sure. Now that doesn't mean that he couldn't have gotten a lateral. I don't think. I'm not sure how that works.
You're right. Yeah, so if he had snapped it and they pass it to the receiver, then I think he can pitch it back to anybody at that point.
I think he can, right. But
so that might have been the play, is to snap it, let the guy go around Elliott, throw it to the receiver, and then Elliott can go out and get the pitch. And
so a San Francisco liner nose tackle up against Elliott and just kind of bowled it over.
Yeah, they just knocked him over. Then the pass came. The guy was caught immediately after the catch. It was just like, okay, that was pretty
anyway,
weird.
So kicking off what we're playing.
Yeah, kicking off what we're playing. So I finally, I'm not out of my baseball funk, but I finally played something besides baseball. So I pulled out Fast Drive Football, the Al Wilson game, and I printed out a couple of seasons and printed out the new set of rules, the 2.0 set of rules, which he clarifies a lot of different things, and just a couple of scenario changes in the book or whatever. And so I printed those out and decided to play it. Well, I hadn't played it in a while, and so I played a little bit myself, getting used, and I made all these mistakes. And then I realized all the mistakes I made. It's like, okay, now I fixed them. So I played another game. I played the 76 Buccaneers going into Houston, opening day, and I played that one a lot anyway. I think the last time I played it, Houston won in overtime. This time, Buccaneers, 3 out of their first 4 drives were turnovers. So it was Buccaneer football. It was. Houston, though, what was the guy's name? Skip Butler or something like that. The kicker for the Oilers missed 3 field goals. He was 0 for 3 kicking field goals for the Oilers in that game.
So did he sign with Dallas last week?
I guess he did, yeah. But Dan Pastorini ended up throwing 3 touchdown passes in the game. Wow. Yeah, so that was a fun one. Get back into football, some fast drive football, plays pretty quick, and it was Houston 21-3. And in real life, it was 20-0. So that was pretty close. So then I decided to go on to YouTube and kind of give a first look video. Now that I got a game under my belt, I felt kind of confident about how to play it. I thought I played it correct. I go on to YouTube last night, and I took some good teams for a change. So I took 76 Pittsburgh Dallas, and that was a fun game.
Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah, it was.
No, it was a year after the Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah. But that game was nutty because I had 5 fumbles. The Steelers fumbled, I think, on 2 out of their first 3 drives. They fumbled. Then we had a guy, either receiver, punt, or kickoff, fumbled. And then I think Dallas fumbled on their own. And I think it was like a catch and a fumble or something like that. Or the quarterback maybe was sacked and fumbled. Because there's a thing on the chart that says if it's before 1990, then this punt turns into a fumble or something like that.
That's a genius. Okay.
Yeah. So I had 5 fumbles in that game, and it was and so even with Pittsburgh getting, I think they had 3 fumbles with 3, either 2 fumbles and whatever it was, 3 turnovers for Pittsburgh. They still were leading 7-6, and they ended up winning 10-6. They tacked on a Jarrella field goal at the end. So that was some definitely good 70s football right there between 2 good teams. Then I played 2 other good teams from 76. I did a doubleheader. It was the Baltimore Colts at the New England Patriots, 11-3 at 11-3. The defense was non-existent. There was no defense in this game whatsoever. I think there might have been 1 punt, maybe 2, because the final score in overtime was 57-51 Baltimore. And in fact, New England, I had 3 rare play rolls in that game. Okay, I rolled 222, 444, and 666, and that's all rare plays. One of the rare plays was like a double reverse for a touchdown. That was kind of cool. And the other one, the 666, I think is just an automatic touchdown no matter what happens. So New England, so New England pulled out some stunts to get back into this game. They tied it with one tick left, by the way. So New England came back. It was a great game, back and forth. Nobody could stop anybody. And then Baltimore, and I had the chat room call the toss, which is kind of neat. So I says, call heads or tails for Baltimore. So somebody calls heads. It was heads. New England kicks off. And the Baltimore guy takes it the entire way on the kickoff in overtime for a touchdown, which I think did happen one time in New England where they took the opening kickoff in overtime and went all the way for the touchdown. So yeah. So
Walter Payton's brother did that in a Thanksgiving Day game for Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Detroit and Chicago on Thanksgiving, and they go to overtime, and I think that's when Eddie was still there. And opening kickoff of overtime, return for a touchdown. Another year of cold turkey for the Lions.
Yeah, I think that there was a Green Bay Detroit game one time too. I think Green Bay went all the way for a touchdown on a kickoff, something like that, or was it the end of the game or something. But anyway, yeah. So this was wild and woolly. Grogan had a couple of interceptions. Britt Jones played very well for the Colts. New England defense just couldn't stop the Colts. It was just like touchdown after touchdown or a field goal. But it was nuts, 57-51. And I think I played it correctly. I just think I just got a lot of rolls that favored the offense, and that was a nutty game. So I finally started to play something besides baseball. So I got into some football. I did play some Spiders baseball. Holy cow. I'm not sure if it was this week or last week, so maybe I already talked about this, but they kicked the crap out of Washington. And it was like 16-4 or something like that. So the Spiders got win number 20. So they've matched their season. They got win number 20 in 1899. And there was one guy, holy cow. So Washington was right above them in the standings. So Washington was not a good team that year. And so
35 games ahead, but yeah, they were horrible.
So I'm in the fourth or fifth inning, and the Spiders are just crushing this pitcher, right? So I'm like, I got to get him out. So I put in some guy. Like I say, I don't know these guys, and I just who can pitch that's not going to be.
God, what Hall of Famer did you not realize you were playing now?
Well, no. What ended up happening is when I went in to see who could pitch, Strat tells you who's coming up in the pitching rotation.
Right.
So I try to avoid those guys if possible, and I try to go to someone who does. So I picked some guy who was not in the rotation. Come to find out, this guy only pitched in one game, and he walked like so many guys in his one appearance. So his card come up, and it was just like 80% walk. And I was just like, what am I supposed to do with this? It's like, okay, maybe I can get a couple of outs out of this guy, but I've already changed pitches, so I'm going to go with this guy. Walk. And then I think I might have got an out, or it might have been a hit or something. Walk. Seriously, after about 5 or 6 walks, I just had to get rid of this guy. He did. I don't even know if he got an out in the inning. I had to take him out. And then I brought in this other guy, lefty something or other, and he was okay. Then this other guy was Davey Dunkel or something like that. And he came in and he nailed it down. He nailed down the Spiders the last few innings, this Dunkel guy. I think it was Davey Dunkel or something like that. But anyway, so he came in and he mopped up to centers. But by that time, it was too late. The Spiders destroyed them. It was a big game, so congrats on the Spiders getting their win. So I play a little bit more baseball. I think I've been playing more in my 79 season that I've been kind of splitting between season ticket and pocket pen.
The 1899 name game.
Yeah, that's what I did too. I forgot. I did using pocket pennant run. I did the 1899 Hall of Name game where I went into the spreadsheet for pocket pennant run and I printed them out and I picked some of my favorite names from 1899 and just created 2 teams. I think I had Uncle Ron Snake Oil and Steeler Fan Buggy Whips, and I just split them up the best I could and played a game of pocket pennant run, and it was kind of fun. Just having the dummy hoy and just all the Honus Wagner played obviously in that game, but there was a couple of guys I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but they're very different names and they were really kind of cool names to play. So I had the Hall of Name game where some of my favorite names played against each other, and I did that in pocket pennant run, and I think I actually did that pure cards and dice. I think I just had my my nice baseball stadium that was built for me.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, that was really nice. I think that was Daniel Forcier that built that for me. I think. I'm sorry if I forget the name. But so I rolled the dice and had the guys running around. So it was purely cards and dice on the tabletop of the Hall of Name game. It was really fun. I couldn't show the cards, though, because it was a mix and match, and there's really no cards anyway in Pocket Penrun. There's a team card. But, yeah, so I did the Hall of Name game with some baseball. So I've been playing some baseball and some football, and yeah, so it's been fun. I mean, I've been digging the baseball, but I've been dying to play football, so I did the fast drive football and had some fun with that. So anyway, so I think that's what I've been playing.
All right, let's see. So we just finished a few moments ago, April, in my 2001 in Action PC Season Odyssey. And the Cincinnati Reds, they're starting to come back down to earth. I had to look it up. They lost 96 that year in 2001. It's when they got Ken Griffey from Seattle, and Griffey got hurt, which was pretty much marred his entire time in Cincinnati. And they weren't really going to be contenders anyway, but through April 28th, they are a first-place team in the National League Central. And so we've had 2 or 3 games on, and I looked what I had picked out for next week, because I pick them out about a week in advance. Can always change what it is that I pick out for games, but usually I just go 1 or 2 weeks in advance, especially if I see a matchup that I really want. And so the Reds have gotten some airtime, and so they continue. Tebow sent me a nice note from the bottom of his closet, by the way, about how it's nice to see oddball teams doing well in a replay. I think a couple years ago when I did 49, the Washington Senators, who sucked, were either contending or above 500 for most of the season. It's one of the reasons why the Red Sox didn't do too well, because they couldn't beat them. But so it's always nice when you get that rare, I wasn't expecting that team. And the Chicago White Sox are doing that in the American League. The White Sox weren't as bad as the Reds, but they weren't really contenders. And so both of my Central Division leaders are teams that I don't think they'll be around come October, but they gotten some streaming time in April, because I had the White Sox on this week, and I've had the Reds on a couple times.
That's when you got to do it. That's what I do too. Is when I first started my 79 project, I was playing like Atlanta Braves and teams like that I knew were going to finish at the bottom because they were bad, and that's what the standings in real life said. So I tried to get in a few of those teams before. It is. I will say that. When you do your baseball things there, and I'm always like, why don't you play every team and this and that and the other thing? So, but when you get to a certain point in the season, some teams are just out of it, and they don't have a chance. So, as fun as it is to play everybody, I really see now that I'm doing this longer project myself that at some point you just want to play the better teams that are in contention. Well, and at some point, the bottom teams and the middle teams, they kind of just fall off the radar to a point that maybe if you were playing a first-place team against them, you might want to play. But I was having fun playing Yankees-Angels, who are the top 2 teams in the East and the West. Excuse me. And I was having fun playing those 2 teams because those games meant something. And then I picked up like a Mets-Braves game that, okay, the Mets are 7 games out. Maybe if they can get a win, they can crawl a little closer. That's why I played that, trying to see if any of these fringe teams could win a couple games. But, yeah, it definitely wasn't quite as fun anymore when you're doing a long product to play the bad teams.
Do you get the bad teams in later in the season when you have a team that's either trying to chase second place team against the last place team, because the second place team desperately needs to win, and the last place team is throwing me out there, and somehow they cobble together enough to play a spoiler. So I've never looked, and it's harder this time around because there's 30 teams. In my sweet spot era of 77 through 93, it's a 26 team league, and so now it's a 30-team league. And the other thing is that you get to know the good teams and know how to run them a bit and see how they were run, because come October, you definitely need to know how they were run, because if you go too drastically different from how they got there, then that's not fair. But so I like those surprises as teams, because first of all, there should be some variation about whether who's good or who's bad, and it gets people some stream time that wouldn't necessarily get stream time. But no, once we get past Memorial Day, I really don't want to do that. You know who you're going to focus on, and if they play each other, great. The thing is now, and going with a modern schedule, and this is anything after 95, is that they only did 6 against teams from other divisions, as opposed to what it was before. When we were kids in the American League, it was 13 in your own and 12 against the others. Now it's 19 against your own and 6 against the others. And so there's only the one trip for the Mariners eastward to play the Yankees. And so you got to make sure that you try to get some of that in there too. You're going to run out of series. Now, this will be the first replay I've done that has interleague in it, which is not my favorite thing on the planet, but it did bring in money, and there's always a curiosity factor for the Cubs and the White Sox and the Mets and the Yankees and the Giants and the A's.
I like that. I like playing every team.
But that's who that was designed for.
Yeah, but it's just the idea, like, even in hockey, it's like, years ago, it's like you wouldn't play some teams at home. And it's like, I want to see everybody. There's a team out west, or there's a player out west that's a superstar, and we're not going to see him. He's not coming to Boston until next year. I mean, that just makes no sense why you can't play every team at least once.
This year, I think everyone does home and away with everybody. So Mike Trout, Mookie Betts will play at Fenway Park this year.
Yeah.
So
even if it's a couple games set, even if it's just, you come in for 2 games to Boston and then you go to 2 games in New York or wherever it is. I mean, but just, the idea you want that, you want to have it, you want to see teams come to your park or your rink or your field or whatever. Yeah. You don't want to have, again, you got the superstar. So the LA Dodgers just signed this guy for $500 billion, and you're not going to see him play in your ballpark this year. I mean, come on, that's not how you do it. And I get the whole travel thing, but if you could pay a guy $500 billion, you can fly him to Boston for a weekend. Sorry,
that's right. No, you're right. So I did that. So I did 3 games this week, and surprisingly enough, because this is the era of B12 shots. Steroids, PED, call them what you will. And we poke fun of that on a regular basis on the streams. I've had all these pitcher's duels.
Really?
Today I had Sean Estes and Julian Taveras, who you might recognize from his time with Boston. He's the one that picked the stuff out of Manny Ramirez's hair in the dugout. Remember that it was weird. They would just kind of sit next to each other, and one would take off the hat, and they would pretend to be the gorillas that would clean the lights out.
Oh, maybe.
You'd know it if you saw it. You wouldn't have. So anyway, so he's pitching for the Cubs, and Sean Estes and his 80 ERAs going for the Giants, and Estes throws a 3-hitter. 1-0 game. He couldn't finish it out, but it's like I've had all these pitchers duels. So that's been kind of fun. What else have I been doing?
You did the football video.
I did a football video on, the love and hate relationship people have with Strat. And so I did a football video on how to install a season in Strat-O-Matic. That was Al Red Sox fan asked for that. And how to set up a league in Strat-O-Matic. And I'll tell you, I'd never auto-simmed a league in Strat-O-Matic football before. You got time to go to the drive-thru and get a meal and come back before it's done.
Oh, yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I want to watch that myself because I get confused with that game.
So did that one. I don't think I played this week. I'm actually spending time on my bowling game, not a cards and dice one, but actual bowling game with real physics and learning how to read the lanes and all that. So I'll go around and need some practice. So that's been pretty much it. I haven't pulled anything else out. I know that they've Stone Cold Hockey's given us another season of beta.
Yeah. Okay.
If he's not, along with the new for 93-94, I think I can say that.
Ooh, nice.
is what they've been giving us to beta, and they want us to run a whole bunch of auto seasons with that.
Okay.
So that's coming out soon, and what else? My wife was off last week, and although it wasn't a vacation week for me, it really is, and I'm sure you find this too, and that's a whole nother show topic. And, when your spouse is home for a week, and it just not cuts into the gaming time, but certainly the schedule of what you do.
It changes the dynamics of your routine.
when her birthday is the 4th of July, and so when she takes that week off, that's my scheduled vacation week.
Right. Yeah.
Just because it's the middle of summer and you want to spend that time with her. But now this past week was okay. We'll do some things. I did all my streams and we did the show and all that, but it really is different when the spouse is home.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. It's hard because you want to spend time with them, and you don't want to just come down and get on the computer and stream something while someone's home and ignore them. Yeah, it's just different. It kind of is. So anyway, should we get into the topic at hand?
Yep, it's time to fill the gap.
All right. So again, this was sent in by Eric. And I'll just read you what he wrote in the Patreon Discord. He said, I'd love to hear a show where you talk about where you think are the gaps in the cards and dice market, both from a content creator point of view, example, video content, apps, helpers, and software, and from the game designer's point of view, examples, styles of games, sports, and seasons. Things you wish were available but aren't. So I think we can kind of take that and kind of expand on that to, where are the gaps, and what do we think gaps have been filled? Because there's been a lot of gaps that has been filled. So
I think for me, just thinking this off the top of my head, in a pure card and dice sense, college athletics and college seasons, specifically college football seasons and college basketball seasons. There are some niche games. We've had Chris Dole on, who had that, but it's Anthony from Glory Days Boxing, Glory Days Gaming, released his college football game, and he actually released in PDF the season. You can buy for $8. You can get all the D1 teams and nice. Play the hybrid method if you so want. But there's a general, I think, dearth of cards and dice college seasons. You're going to find some great team sets and all that. And our friend, Saber Game has done all the old time, greatest hits from old time conferences that you and I still need to go trying to figure out. I mean, that game looks incredible. But if you really want, let's say your favorite team was Boston College, for instance, you'd have a hard time on the tabletop playing their season. I mean, yes, Michigan was a playoff team, so that's going to be done, and Alabama and all that. So that would be, I think, one of the biggest gaps is trying to play, because there's large sections of the country where college football is king.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
And they don't have the options to play a full play game like we do. Look, we can play with the 1920 Decatur Staleys, for crying out loud, in the NFL. They became the Chicago Bears, but we really can't play the 2022 BC Eagles or UConn Huskies or something like that. Yeah. So that's where I would think that right now the biggest gap would be. Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of games that do have college stuff. Don't get me wrong.
They do, but they're either A, kind of abstract, or B, older. I mean, Schiavini, I think, has it. Roberto Schiavini has it out. But again,
does actually PC have college?
He's releasing them. In a PC, I think you can get them.
A couple cards and dice, yeah.
Playoff teams were released. I know that Dave has done a good job getting college basketball seasons done. It used to be just the tournament teams, but yeah, so they're more of an interest in that. I think he's even done the WNBA seasons, if that is your thing, to play those. But again, that's a PC game and not necessarily a card and dice game.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. I'm trying to think of what's out there for college cards and dice stuff, and I mean, there's Downey Games. I think has some. Are there quicker play games that have some
quicker play games?
Yeah, I know that they got some college basketball quicker play. They might even have some football college in there.
I'm
as
sure
well.
There is.
So yeah, but as far as like a pure one here, I'm not sure. Yeah, so I think that's a good one. Yeah, so there's a gap there. College sports, especially cards and dice. Yeah, I can see that being a thing.
Yeah, I think that would do well. I mean, there's Mark Miller is working on another version of his bowling game. So for the niche sports, it's hard to find seasons. The great time travel tennis is kind of a hybrid of just all-time great players, and you can create your own schedule. But there isn't, let's say, 2020 version or 2019 version of Roger Federer. There is a Roger Federer card, and it's pretty damn good just because of what he did in his career. But if you wanted to, let's say, do the 2018 ATP Tennis Tour, good luck.
Yeah,
I think there are some smaller versions out there, but like an 80s for that too. I mean, yeah, we can do Connors and McEnroe, and it really doesn't. Only for a handful of people does it matter if it's going to be in Philadelphia or New York. But there are people that want to do that on tour. Inside Sports did that, right? Yeah, you bought the Inside Volley game for that.
Yeah, I do. I actually like it. I do.
Yeah. So, but there's not a lot of seasons for tennis. There's a lot of gaps in horse racing between decade sets for horses, if that's your thing, Mr. Whitehead, if you're listening. But again, we're talking a lot of niche sports as far as what necessarily is missing. Now, you can talk about games like Replay and others that are missing seasons, but they seem to have established at this point what they want to get into and what they don't want to get into. And for any card designer, it's tough to get 2 quality seasons out. Even Strat will only release 2 new seasons in a given year, in 76 and super advanced in 2022.
Yeah. But you were talking about tennis there, and one gap that got filled was the play tennis game.
Oh, the play.com tennis, yeah, because
that was great.
That was really, I mean, there are some very good point-by-point games, shot-by-shot games, but there really wasn't the shootout hockey of tennis. And so what they did, it was it was the Black Friday special, right?
Yeah, the Black Friday or Christmas, one of the two. Yeah, I think it was Black Friday.
And now it's, I believe, is on sale year-round now, right?
I think that the response is so good that they kept it up, yeah. And I think it was a PDF game, and just it's tennis. And you could buy a couple different seasons or an all-time great or something like that. And
I think there's a couple seasons, an all-time great set, and a fictional set because Play does really well with those. And it sets it up that you can either go with their good storytelling, just roll the dice and kind of go on from there and get instant results on matches too. If you wanted to ever play out a final, you could play it out shot by shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
So,
I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I saw people play it, and I want to hopefully find some time at the end of my busy season, sit down and pull that out and play that. But yeah,
Red Sox fan has streamed that, and Steve Tower has streamed it as well. And I just found that, sometimes you don't realize that there's a gap in something until someone goes, "Well, here you go."
Yeah, and then that filled it. Yeah,
and it's like, oh. And again, it does a good job in telling the story and putting the meat on the bone, so it's not just player A beats point player B 7-5, 5-7, 7-5. Tell me something about how that happened, and the play stuff does a good job with that. So that gap has been filled.
I think another gap that got filled nicely was the Digital Diamond version 10. When he put that out as a game and a standalone companion for all those seasons, that was huge because I've been playing more Cards and Dice baseball than I have in my entire life in the last couple of months since I got that helper, and I can play any game you want. You can play on that, And I know that Strat and PC Replay Baseball both have that same kind of feel, so you can play it and simulate the game. And I haven't done it with Strat. I did it with the PC Replay, and it was fine. There was no issues with it.
There are 4 ways you could do that before. You could do it with Strat and Replay, the caveat being you needed to own the season.
Right, you have to buy the season.
There was Ball Stat, Ball Score, and the gentleman who did that passed away, and the family requested no new additions to it. And from the world of XP and Windows 7, that was a great piece of software. You could take retro sheet files and come up with – there were a lot of roster files made for that. You couldn't play a game – well, technically you could if you owned the Baseball for Windows discs. They would read those and give you the numbers to play. But really it was an add-on product. There was no AI for that. And it's a score sheet, essentially, which kept good stats. And again, I think I paid for that. It's now free, but worth the $15. And iScore, which I believe is only for tablets, right? It's not. I
think so. Yeah, I think it's a mobile thing. Yeah.
And again, it worked great for what it did, but there was no AI. So you had that, and of course, the old pen and paper, which never goes out of style.
Right.
But I think what Digital Diamond did, what Mark did, and when he was on the show, I give him so much. I've said this before. I give him so much credit for saying, okay, I've invented a mousetrap I like. I get to play the game I want. But I understand that there are other mousetraps that you might think are better. And so instead of saying, no, you can't do that, wow.
Yeah, no. I've played that. Like I say, for some reason, the Digital to Diamond Helper, it just works for me. It flows for me.
It's visual.
It's visual. It's very visual. I like how I have all the pictures of the players in there, and I like how I can set that up. I can put in my own stadiums. I can add my own logos and just change the names. I can put in the ratings for other games in the notes section of it. It's just so player friendly and user friendly to do it. And I like that how you can simulate the rest of the games and pick the game you want. Now, and you can do that in PC Replay and Strat too. So I realize that. But this is something about how this one does it that I just really like, and it struck a chord with me and allows me to play all my favorite games. And I love how they have every player in there, and they have the as played lineups. And I know the other ones do too. I'm not taking anything away from it. But this one here it checked all the boxes for me.
I still find it odd that someone, and I know people who've done this. And again, nothing but just odd, not wrong, that would buy the Strat PC game or the PC Replay game and pull out the APA cards, and play APA with a Strat background.
Yeah, again, that would be kind of weird. Yeah,
with that, but that's kind of like bringing in your own drink to a restaurant.
Yeah, that would be kind of weird to play Apple with Strat. Now, I did play Apple one time with PC Replay, and it was fine because you're just kind of putting in the stuff. But this one, I don't know. I just got in the flow of this one. And we always talk about, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer here. It's just what works for you. That just works for me.
It works for me too. And since I know he's working on a new version, I'm kind of between projects right now because I really want to take something and just kind of get real serious with it because the game, the engine or the software allows you to be so flexible. I probably would not do a lot of AI games with that just because I really, baseball is my bread and butter, but I'm glad that it's there, so yeah.
No, one gap that needs to be filled, just following up on that, is I need a hockey version of that. I really, really do. Now, Stone Cold Hockey is great because you can roll your own dice in that game, and it simulates other games and keeps all your stats and the whole bit. But that's if you want to play Stone Cold Hockey. If I want to play APA or Hockey Bones or Strat or Shootout or any other game that I want to play,
there was a box score generator, but the guy that did that, along with the Pro Football Helper, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is no longer with us. Tom Milne.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, if I could somehow put in the stats from a hockey game I played.
You tried to do that with the Strat Helper.
The Strat Helper does okay. I did that for Shootout Hockey. I did a 70-71 season. No, I did that with Final Score from Downey. And I just put in the scores. And that worked out okay. I could get the scores, but there was no stats. I started to do it with Shootout. And where I did 70-71, and I got through October, and I get into November, and it just was it was just a lot of work playing the game, spitting out the box score, then going into the helper, and then plugging everything in. It was tiring. It was just tiring. And so I kind of wish that there was a program that I could play Strat or App or whatever it is, input my stats, and then sim the other ones if I wanted to. Or just an easier way to put in the stats. Now, if I play Strat, I can play it right in the helper, so that's not an issue.
I think we talked about that. You'd kind of wish that the Strat PC game linked with the helper, which it doesn't.
That would be great. If they connected together, then you could play cards and dice in PC, and at least in Strat. But if I want to play Hockey Bones or APA, I really can't do I can't do a large project. I mean, because I'm doing
but it's very time consuming.
I'm doing the Bruins 92, and I'm still I'm 8 or 10 games into that, and that's been kind of fun. But I got to keep my own stats on that. But if I could just input that into the computer and play along with a season, that would be ideal. So I need a hockey helper similar to Digital Diamond Baseball Helper, where I could play any hockey game I want and put in my stats and have that simulate the other games.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second here, because if you designed a game, how willing would you be to open that up for someone to play any game. I mean, that's what made the whole digital diamond thing incredible.
No, you're exactly right about that. Yeah.
And so I hear what you're saying, but again, ego gets in the way. Like, well, why won't you play my game? But I think that would be, I see both sides of that. Basketball, I think you could kind of do that with too, because although there are, computerized, there's Strat. We won't talk about Cactus League. Strat and Action PC do all the bookkeeping for you, and they're both very good games.
I think PC Replay Basketball, you could input stats into that as well.
Oh, you could?
I think you can. I think you can do the manual input of stats. So you could play any basketball game and then plug in the stats into PC Replay.
Provided that you bought the season.
Right, you have to have the season.
And there are not many seasons for Replay Basketball.
Right. But if you had a season that they had available and you bought it, I believe that you can input. So you can pick a game and just put manually enter stats for this game. So you can put in everybody's stats, save it, and that'd be part of the project.
I did that once in Ball Score. I was playing with a different game engine and then just going through every half inning or so to do that. And it does get tedious. Mm-hmm. Because the commands are there, and you see how one game handles how to get there, and the game gave you stats. There's no AI in that particular game, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it was designed to be, the developer of the creator of the game wanted to treat it just like you were playing a cards and dice game, and so there is no AI with that. That was right up front. So trying to do that and put that in the Ball Score. Yeah, I did about 15, 20 games that way. Okay, let's just play the game.
Moving on to something else that he brought up was video content. So I want to talk about that. So
you and I have done that.
Yeah, well, that's something that the community at large tries to do, including Ron and myself, whereas, we find a new game or a game that maybe doesn't have a lot of content on the internet, and we try to show it off because I know if I see a new game or even an old game that I don't know anything about, I like to see what it is. Okay, let me see someone playing it. Is this something I'd be interested in? Because sometimes you see it's like you have no clue about this game whatsoever, and you can read all the descriptions you want, but once you see it in action, you have a better idea what you're looking at. So video content is a big deal.
It's huge.
I wish more creators would do it. Some do, and some don't. Some do a good job with it, some do none, and some kind of do a half-hearted job just to have something out there.
It's hard to explain something as you're learning it. I had was interested in Strat Basketball. I think Dave Little did a stream because he's in a multiplayer league, so maybe it had been an all-star game or something like that. And so I'd seen it, and he didn't buy the card image. And in fact, poor Dave, I don't think realized that, if you're gonna buy, you gotta buy the card image with any Strat game. And so I got bored one night because the hundreds of games that I do have that don't get played. And it's like, no, we need something else. We're all fuzzy with the MGD. Yep. And so I went to look to see about Strat Basketball because I bought it in college. In fact, I'm probably one of the reasons why they had a $2.95 a minute surcharge for that, because I remember in my college dorm calling on the payphone down to Glenhead.
Oh boy,
where's my game? Resend it. Leave us alone. So I bought it, and it's one of those things that you have. I could play it solitaire, but again, it's a long slog when you can't physically do much of anything. And my family, no one likes basketball where I was growing up. So it was just me, myself, and I. And it kind of got put away, and I'm sure got ruined. But I'd always had an interest in the game because I liked the hockey game and loved the baseball game. And so I looked to see about how difficult would it be to pick up, because the one thing about the Strat games on the PC outside of baseball is that you're locked into super advanced. You are locked into that. Now, nothing wrong with that because the computer does most of the work for you. There were no videos on YouTube on super advanced Stratomatic Basketball, and that's why I bought the game. If I figured it out, I figured I would just show this off, and it has turned out to be personally my favorite basketball game. Again, there's no right or wrong answer to that, and there's no perfect game. But the only reason why I bought it to begin with was because there were no videos about it.
I've done that myself. I've found a couple of games that were very interesting that had no videos, whether it was a Downey game or there was a bigger game or something like that. But there's been some games that I've picked up for the sole purpose of, this looks like fun. There's no videos whatsoever. Nobody knows what's going on with it. So let me see if I can get something out there and show off.
Did you do that with regular season basketball?
Yeah, that was one of the first ones I found. I think I did, yeah. Yep. So I get, regular season basketball, and I found that and played it. It's like, oh, this is great. So I did some videos on it, and it turns out Marco actually liked the video so much that he put it on his main page, and I was like, yeah, that's fine with that. But yeah, there's all sorts of games out there that I think this is my way of giving back to the community a little bit.
Oh, I think so.
And consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously, whatever that word is. But I mean, I'll see a game. It's like, there's nothing out there or there's nothing really good. I mean, somebody might be playing it, but they're not showing you how. They're not getting in depth with it or something like that. So let me dig into this. And I did that a lot with a lot of the Downey games. It's like, here's what I found with some of the Downey games. So because they had a ton of football games. Oh, what is this game? What's different from this game to that game? So I try to do a whole series on the Downey football games, showing off what I liked, what I didn't like, how to play it, how or whatever. At least get you an idea of how the game looks and how it plays. So video content is a big deal. And I know that we both bought games to do that.
And there's others, like the Play.com games, that have good videos around them. Tabletop Earl and the golf. But watching those
Play does the videos themselves. That's one thing they do really well.
They do too.
So they show off their games very well as the community does as well. But there's some games that have absolutely nothing, and those are the ones that I like to go after. And again, you did the Strat Basketball, and that was really helpful. And I like those videos there, and I talk all the time about video content. I don't care if there's 100 videos on a game. If you want to get on and give your 2 cents, and you want to talk about the game, you might say it in such a way that it strikes a chord with somebody that nobody else did. And
we all see it. We all see differently.
We see, look at the Tebow and the Apple Hockey. I mean, how many Apple Hockey videos did I watch, and how many times did I try to play it? It wasn't until Tebow sat down and there was a 2 or 3 minute span in one of his videos that cleared up everything I needed to know. Or at least everything I was getting stuck on, my biggest stumbling block, I should say, he cleared up in his video. And if he doesn't do that video, he doesn't clear it up, and I don't play Apple Hockey.
Right.
But his video cleared up something that was no one else could explain to me, or at least not in a way that I could understand it. And he did it, and it cleared it up for me. So I probably took a little bit of this video, a little bit of that video, a little bit of this guy, a little bit of this guy. And by the time I got done watching all these things, my questions were answered, or at least the stumbling blocks were cleared up for me enough to play the game. So that's why I like, I'll watch 100 videos if I could on a game. And sometimes even a year later, like Replay Gamer, for example, will come out and he's like, hey, I'm going to play this game here. And it's a game that, I've been playing for a while, but I want to see how he does it. Maybe there's something I didn't pick up on. And usually there is. Usually there's something that's like, oh, I wasn't thinking of that way. Or, oh, that's how he's doing it. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. Or maybe, so there's always something little you pick up or big you pick up in these different videos. So video content is huge.
The thing is, if you're a fan of a particular game, it doesn't really matter what the game is. And if you want to create content, make a video. Because whatever it is that you like about the game is going to come through in the video presentation of why you should be playing this game. The Savini games, on the surface, you look at them and go, I'm never going to get anything out of this. Okay, it's nice that you can do gymnastics and figure skating and all that, but why would I play this? And I, went in and, set up my dice roller and to that one. Oh, I get it. I get it completely. And there are some games that you just need, Anthony from Classic F1 is also the creator of Time Travel Tennis and Classic Soccer. So he's done some major substantial games for the community. I wish that he would show off in a video how to play that game because I've tried it. It was a 3-part video. Yeah. And so there was PJet, I believe, that asked me, been a year, what do you think? Well, I only played the game a couple times because it took so long to do. I mean, it's fascinating and great, but it would take up all of my gaming time to do that.
Yeah.
But if someone like a game creator would do a video on that, as you said, you're going to pick up on a couple things and understand why he's excited about that. Maybe beg him to do a PC version of that. But I mean, just that it does sell games. I mean, one of the things I realized early on doing the 78 football season when I met you was, people would joke with me in the chat, well, you're my pusher.
Yeah.
Okay, haha, that's very funny. But these videos sell games. You and I have sold a boatload of games. And so anytime that a creator can be involved to show off what makes it work for him or what specific design thing that you may get from him that you didn't from someone else. We do try to interview people to do that, but showing how it is done is different from talking about how it's done.
Yep, I got to see it. Then we can talk about apps. There's not a lot of apps, like mobile apps. I mean, aside from some of the scoring stuff that we talked about, but is there really a lot of apps
for games?
For anything really, as far as the cards and dice or
that is the holy grail. I think of what will be mid-20s gaming is that someone has got to go through and make this easier to play on a mobile device, because I'll tell a story of someone who was caught at the cable company and was having a bad day to begin with, and then had to get in line behind 5 other people who needed their phones checked. Now, if that person, who shall remain nameless, had a way to play a couple of innings of baseball or a period of hockey, they might have been in a better mood by the time that customer number 97 came up in the customer service wheel.
Maybe. I always play games. Like if I go into the doctor's office, I'm always playing cribbage or something like that.
Yahtzee. I had a Yahtzee game for you, not on my phone, but the old handheld.
Yeah.
But not, in all seriousness, anyone who decides to take on the mobile market for these games, and not the browser games, because that would just be too small to see on your phone, the Dynasty Leagues and the app it goes. I can't imagine trying to play those on your phone, could you?
Oh boy, yeah, that'd be difficult. But you never know. I wonder, like I say, but whoever jumps into the apps, you think that would bring in the younger crowd, because they're on their phones. They're not on their computers. Everything is on the phone.
Even just old fogies like us who are kind of stuck in line. 3-hour layover at an airport, you can't pull out a box of Strat. Well, you could, but yeah, I think to reach the younger people, because the betting apps and the fantasy football apps are so easy to use.
I bet that somehow, some way, you could play a game of Strat on the iPad. The Strat PC game.
There must be dice apps.
But what I'm saying is, if you can play everything on a computer, if they could port that over on an iPad, it'd be tough on a cell phone, but cell phone's getting a little bit bigger now. But I mean, on an iPad, you tap the roll of the dice or input the dice and let the game do its thing. And I mean, if you could do it on the computer, I mean, I would think that, somehow, some way that could transform over to
they've tried a couple different versions of OOTP for mobile. And maybe I think a lot of it was 5 or 10 years too soon. It just doesn't sell very well. Now, obviously, you can't put the deep database that comes with OOTP now.
So maybe there's like a OTP Lite or a Strat Lite or something like that you could put on there and, play. I don't know, just something to think about. But
these phones are pretty powerful computers.
Yeah, if someone could get into the app market and put it on the app of some kind, or a mobile app or something, I think that might be a big thing here. Let me see. Jumping. So we talked a little bit about helpers. We talked a little bit about video content and apps. We talked a little bit also from the game designer's point of view, style of games or sports or seasons. I guess seasons is one of the big ones, finding gaps. You already talked about, college having a big
universal.
But there's a lot of games that have gaps in seasons, and you wonder, if they filled in those gaps. That'd be great. There's a lot.
How would they do? I mean, 50 now gets you into the. If you turn 50 this year, you graduated high school in 1991. Okay, and so Strat and App, I have those 80 seasons for you. But if you're going to be nostalgic about it and want to play these games, yeah, you really need to have stuff now. Your catalog needs stuff from the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does. Yeah. Yeah. And you need to. Not only that, I mean, a lot of people really enjoy the as played. So it's important to have every player too. I hate to say it, and I know some people disagree with that, but that's a big deal for me. When I sit down and look at a game, and I figure, okay, what seasons do you have? Do you have every player? I mean, those are two big things for me. Because if I love your game, and there's a couple games, I'm not going to mention them, but there's a couple games that I have, but they have very, very few seasons, if any, in my wheelhouse. So right. I'm really not going to play those games.
The other thing is that all the data about who played, and baseball as played, you've been able to do for a while. Ron Bernier, who we still hope to have on at some point, has done a lot of the work for that, and with Retro Sheet and such, we know that. But for football, basketball, and hockey, there's stuff that's coming to light now that had never been out there before, and you can finally do an as-played replay if you so chose.
I mean, Hockey Bones does it really well, whereas they give you every play. So what they do is they give you all the teams, obviously, and any player that played on two different teams, you get one card for that player, and it says what teams he was on. And I like that. So when I separate my teams, I separate my teams, and then I have a separate pile consisting of all the guys that played on multiple teams. And so when I sit down to play, if I look in my team cards and I don't have a guy, now I know that, okay, well, he didn't play the whole season with them, so I jump into that pile, and I always find him in that pile there. But I always put him right back. So I never have to guess where he is. So if he's not in with the team, then I know exactly he's in this pile here. Whereas if I slipped him on a team, let's say I put him on Vancouver, but now I'm playing a game that he was supposed to be on New Jersey. He's not there. I don't know where he is because I don't know what team he played on. Right, and
some games do. We won't mention any names, but we'll just do you do your card on the last team you played for.
Yeah, and I guess that's fine too because most people like to play playoffs and the whole bit. So, but again, if you're playing as played, I find it super important for me to have everyone. Now, it doesn't mean that I will not play a game if you don't have everybody carded, and I get that you don't want to card everybody with one at bat or one shot on net or whatever. But it is nice to when you play a game and everyone's there, or even 90-95% of people, like even in the hockey games that I have, it's fun to look at a goalie that only played a couple of games and you got the card for that guy. So that's kind of fun to have too. So I think seasons are a big deal. Getting everybody carded is kind of a big deal as well, as far as that stuff goes. Now, as far as games that are missing out there, I mean, the big four are going to be your big ones. As far as
a pretty healthy selection of soccer games out there too.
Yep. You got some soccer out there as well. And you could, if you really want to find your game, let's say you're a lacrosse guy. I mean, there are lacrosse games out there. If you're there is Canadian football games out there if you really want. Yep, Cold Snap was one of them. Yep. So there's games out there, but again, if you want to get into, like I say, curling, it's going to be tough to find a really good curling game.
They're going to be regionally based games.
Yeah, but that's the other thing.
Up here in New England isn't going to sell in Georgia. Well,
that's the thing. If you're in, is what's going to be your market to sell curling? Are you going to sell more baseball games or more curling games? So how much are you going to put into the curling? Just using curling as an example. Volleyball, let's say. I mean, how many people?
There really isn't a professional volleyball league.
How many people are dying to play a volleyball game? And I'm not dumping on volleyball.
No, not at all.
But I'm just kind of speaking. Okay, we're gonna sit down. Okay, we're gonna create a new game. Are you gonna create a baseball game, a football game, a hockey game, a basketball game, or are you gonna create volleyball? I mean,
we're going to sell 1 million of them in India.
Yeah, where's your market? Where's your market?
Exactly.
What you're looking for?
Exactly.
So you got to be kind of smart about that. So there's probably a lot of games that people would love to play, but again, are enough people going to want to play that game? I run roller hockey leagues. I think it'd be great to have a roller hockey game that I could play, right? And not just Shavini's got some quick play ones, but could I play a roller hockey game? Was somebody going to card the Roller Hockey International from '95 that played on ESPN2? Back in the day, how many people would buy that? 20? You know what I mean? So you got to look
I
at.
remember watching it. I don't think I'd buy it. So
but that's the thing. So you got to really think about how big the sport is and who's going to watch it, and in your circles, some of these games might be absolutely huge. Oh my gosh, we sell 1 million copies. No, you're not going to sell 1 million copies.
No.
So
the one thing that the gap is starting to fill with is golf seasons.
Yeah, golf is making a comeback.
ASC
with that.
Golf will sell you hundreds of cards of seasons. Now, I don't know if any will do a live tour card set. But,
yeah, right.
but but before you might get the top. When Appa Golf was pretty much the only card in Dice Golf game, you might get the top 32 in a given year. And honestly, when you're doing shot by shot, hole by hole, you really aren't going to want to do a 148 player tournament or 156 player tournament. But with computers and with quick play elements, you can.
See, I like how the History Maker Golf does it, whereas you start off just kind of rolling dice and going through stacks of people and
so clever how they do that.
Manually
really
pulling people out and putting people into the tournament. That's great because you whittle it down, and occasionally a superstar won't make it, and occasionally a nobody will, and that's what makes it kind of fun. But then
what makes golf good.
And then you get down to, I think you roll for the day, and then you finally get it down to Sunday where you take the top 12, I believe it is, 10 to 12 golfers, and then you go hole by hole and shot by shot, because it's not really shot by shot, but sometimes it is how they do it.
Clever enough. I watch Tenacious Earl. Tabletop Earl is the one that does the golf tour. It's all fictional players. Mm-hmm. Real courses and fictional players, and sometimes I'll sit there for a half hour and watch.
Yep.
Just very clever how it's done. And again, storytelling is one of the big for me, is one of the biggest things in games. So
I think what we can do now is turn it over to the audience, and what are some of the gaps that need to be filled, or what are some of the gaps that have been filled that you're really happy the gaps have been filled, as we try to I think it was a good topic to talk about here, as far as what, as cards and dice players or as PC players in the sports sim world, what are some of the gaps? What are some of the things that we're missing that we'd like to see, or that we'd like to have, or that we would play, or whatever? So we want to know from you. What are some of the gaps you'd like to see filled out there? And who knows? Maybe some of these suggestions will raise some eyebrows, and we might see some of these gaps filled. So
yes.
So let us know on that in the comments or on Facebook, or whoever you'd like to get a hold of us here. That being said, let's get into our stars of the week. All righty. Number 3 star here in episode 168 is MP Fox.
Yay!
Thank you, MP Fox, for...
Spring training's around the corner, and him and his son are huge Tampa Bay fans.
Yeah, okay. Number 2 star is Craig Scarborough.
Yay!
Craig, thank you so much for continuing to support the show. And our number 1 star, one of the new Patreons. And nice. I'm hoping I say his name correctly. And if I say it wrong, I do apologize. It looks like Rodolfo Beza. Woohoo! Thank you so much for listening in and supporting the show. Thank you so much, guys. And thanks to all of our Patreons. And again, it was one of our Patreons in Discord that... suggested this topic, so we like listening to you guys and talking to you guys, and
thank you very much.
And that's what part of this is. Part of being a Patreon for the show, especially the $5 a month Patreon, is to get into Discord and help us shape the show. Give us some ideas for the show, because we want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. What are some of the things you'd like to hear us talk about, and then we get your feedback as well, and that's kind of how we do it here on the show. So, should we wrap some things up here?
Absolutely.
All righty, this has been the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 168, and we talked about filling the gaps. So again, we want to know what are some of the things that could be filled in here in the world of sports simulation, cards and dice, or PC, whatever you want to call it here. Ways to get a hold of us: digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. And I just looked, Ron, and for some reason I have not been getting notifications on the text line. So I have a handful of messages on the dice line.
Oh.
It's been weird. So
really?
I'm going to sit down, okay, after this is responses were done here and go through those, but I noticed a couple of them are a month or two old. It's like, why have I not been getting notifications? Because usually you get the little thing that pops up and says you got a notification. I have not been getting them. So I do apologize that I haven't got back to anybody that sent us a text, because I just haven't been notified about them. So I got to go and catch up on some of those. Let's see. The email, digitaltodice@yahoo.com, the best way to get a hold of us on email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digital2dice. That's a wrap on 168.
Wow.
Yep, that was a fun one there. Good topic.
Yeah,
and
thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah, and keep doing those suggestions there, too, because we had a whole lot of topic planned for today, and Ron says, check the Discord, and I checked it. It's like, yeah, I think that's something we could talk about here and have some fun with. So anyway, all righty then. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And we'll talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.